G'day YouTube, Warbles on a lot here. As you know, I live in the forest with the kangaroos and the swamp wallabies, being something of a hermit. But that wasn't always the case. For a while there I lived in a house in a village with the wife and her 2 kids. And today's the 5th of June and everybody yesterday was remembering Tianenmen Square, and I was thinking back to what I was doing when Tianenmen Square was unfolding. We were having an elective home birth. So today marks 30 years of me being a parent. And I'm only 58, so I've been a parent for over half my life. We were having an elective home birth for a few reasons, one of which, as a retired registered general nurse, I had the paperwork to obtain Entinox, premixed nitrous oxide and oxygen, and I'd set up delivery apparatus for it. So that was there. And my wife was the sort of person who thought every woman should have her second baby first so she knew what she was in for, and she hated hospitals and doctors. And I was the sort of nurse who thought that no man should be in charge of catching a baby, so I organised for the local midwife who lived on the alternative lifestyle community to come up and catch my son. Didn't know it was going to be a son at that point, but yeah. So as it happens, the midwife who's going to appear in the photos, she's now the mayor of the town of Glen Innes. We're one of very few towns that has a Australian Greens Party member for mayor. So yeah, this is my son's birthday photos. And I've cleared the video with him. I have no ability to contact some other people who are in the video, and I don't think Squirrel will mind, that being the name the mayor was known under before she reverted to being Carol Sparks. And everybody else who appeared in the video consented to be in front of the camera on the day. And as the photographer, I own the pictures, and I get to decide what I use to illustrate stories about what happened in my life, like the birth of my son. Matthew's birth. Every birth is different. Every birth is unique. In this case, every day for 3 days, my wife went into labour and then went to sleep in the early hours of the morning. So the first photos were taken on the first night of labour, and afterwards there's photos the night we actually got a baby. So this pretty much shows the mood of my stepsons at the idea of having a baby sister or brother. Christopher on the left, David on the right. Christopher in my grandfather's Austrian cane rocking chair. And the lens of the video camera with which we recorded the proceedings. Christopher expressing surprise at something said on television. An oxygen humidifier and regulator and giving set applied to an Entinox cylinder so that I could deliver Entinox to my wife. And the cradle, which I made with the jigsaw, which you can see in the current propeller carving video series. First bit of furniture I ever actually designed and built. Haven't got it here, but I know where it is. The entire giving set I do still have. There she is, my wife, looking down the barrel of my 300mm 5 power telephoto Zenit photo sniper with flash attached. And she doesn't like being photographed. However, the children insisted. Here it is, the living room couch on which my son and my daughter were both born. My wife's cat, who appeared to understand cameras. David. Christopher and David. Zoe, I think at this point we were waiting for the midwife, less than happy at being photographed kissing me, contemplating the home birth, which she set in motion and demanded and required. My long-suffering wife seems somewhat happier there. That's because the midwife has arrived, as has, or had, Valtraud Annalena Kunn, my mother-in-law. The three women. Valtraud, Zoe, Squirrel. Well, she goes by Carol these days, most of the time, most people, being as she's the mayor of the town. Golly gosh, me in the good graces again. Stepson happy, mother-in-law not so much. Waiting is. Here we go. Warbles on a lot was always big on photo montages. Even back in the day. Note the obstetric stethoscope. Everything quietened down, and a different cat came in to comfort and to be friendly. An actual candid shot out in the laundry when she didn't know she was being photographed. A moment of recognition. You're on camera. By the way, those of my subscribers who know of a YouTuber in Cornwall, name of Laurel La, hope you guys are all laughing. I have often remarked on the curious resemblance that my wife bears to Laurel La. How you going, Kathy? David, with the expressive little face. We've already decided I was the stepfather from hell. Candid shot of my mutti-in-law, Valtraud Annalena Kunn, nee Kruger. Left Germany and went to England, left England, come to Australia. After her husband died about 15 years ago, she went back to Germany. And that's where my mother-in-law is now. Completely different face once she knows she's on camera, isn't it, eh? Anyway, in 2.5 weeks, my daughter is flying over there to visit her. So, how you going, Valtraud? Matthew's just turned 30. Isn't that a great thing? Squirrel, Carol Sparks. Long before she was Mayor of Glen Innes. Waiting. As the Labor failed to progress and sort of slowed down, leaving Warbles in his camera with plenty of time to make close-up studies from across the room from people who are not used to what long lenses can do. The morning after, Squirrel and Zoe in the kitchen after she'd had several hours sleep because everything just sort of kind of stopped. And there was a repeat on the 4th. Just like there had been a repeat on the 3rd. Because, like I said, she went into labour and fell asleep. She went into labour and fell asleep. She went into labour, and on the morning of the 5th, we got a baby. So, this was the night everything actually really happened, which means that this was the night of the 4th of June. And, yeah, Tianenmen Square was what was on the TV. Squirrel had to sort of go home and come back again 3 times. And she was getting a bit toey. Because she's the registered midwife, she's in charge of it all, and the textbook sort of says if you've got failure to progress after 24 hours, take yourself to the hospital and get induced. And the wife wasn't happy with that, so I dug out my father's first wife's book of nursing and obstetrics, and it said that before the Second World War, before they had antibiotics, the treatment for failure to progress was keep everything clean, don't do any internal exams, and wait 2 weeks. And if you haven't got a baby at the end of 2 weeks, then you can think about a caesarean. So we waited. And it didn't seem freaky to me because my mother went into labour every day for sort of 10 days. But I was an experimental baby, you know, with experimental birth-inducing drugs back in 1961. So to me, 3 days with no baby wasn't such a problem. Squirrel was getting a bit toey. By this stage, to try and cut the light intensity of the flashes, I'm using a blue filter, so that's why the colours are all sort of washed out. There's Zoe pacing in the hallway on top of the fish tank. There's a Royal Air Force Aircrew Mark V Vickers helmet. Just the sort of thing you need if you're flying a TSR-2. So I bought it when I was about 18 in a disposal store. Cost me $175. Ridiculous thing for me to own, so I don't own it anymore. This was kind of the last photo I took for a while. In the next photo, Squirrel had gone from looking really toey and worried to absolutely delighted and happy because we had a happy bouncing baby boy. And there he is, about 2-3 hours old, and his mother's changing his first meconium nappy, and that was the last nappy she changed for 3 months. Because you can do that when you marry a registered general nurse. Whoever would have thunk it? So there we go, official proof. My wife was happy with my son's birth, back when it happened. For reasons of YouTube's censorship software algorithms, I've got to put my thumb over the photo. Not because I want to keep my wife under my thumb, but because I'm allowed to show you my son suckling, but YouTube forbid if I was to show that there was a nipple on the other side of her chest. For all those of you who worry about infants and newborns sleeping with their parents, he's awake and feeding and she's asleep. And it all works very well. I've watched both my kids suckling while their mother stayed asleep. And there she is the morning after. And it turned out that the reason that she went into labour and out of labour 3 times is that when he was born, he had one of his hands up on top of his head like he was scratching his forehead thinking about whether it was time to be born or not. If we'd have taken my wife to hospital after 24 hours and they had hit her with syntocinon, which is synthetic oxytocin, the resulting strong labour would have left his hand rammed up against the cervix. It would have been avascular for the whole of the labour. And my son, the fire brigade captain and auto electrician, would probably have lost his hand at birth. So yeah, home births are pretty good because you're in control and you can do everything slowly when it needs to be done slow and gentle. So I have to bow to the wisdom of my wife in insisting and demanding and requiring that I get set up for and provide for her a couple of home birth experiences. And 30 years down the track, I still have proof that even the cat was happy when Matthew was born, as were his brothers, who attended the event. And then 15 months later, this little fella sat in the playpen on the floor of the lounge room watching while his little sister was born on that same living room couch. Extra supplemental material. This is about how old he was when he had a Shetland pony to ride, as well as a swing in the backyard. Here he is about 5 years old in Inglewood, photographing aeroplanes. If you look really carefully in the rear vision mirror, you can see him sitting in the back seat of the ultralight taking that photo at age 5. He took this one too, whereas I took this one. Pirate in the making. Avast, you scurvy dog daddy, I found you. Using the ancestral 1970s flight simulator, learning to land on the runway when we lived at Waverley Park at Skeleton Creek. Here he's leading his sister on a search and rescue expedition looking for Canada John, who was, at the time, There they are. Lost. Christmas 97. Waverley Park, 2002. Visiting friends, photographing me. First firefighting backpack, second backpack, his own PPE at age 14. Mate, he was so keen. Paid for that saw by age 13. Age 17, marching with the Dundee Brigade. Happy birthday, Matt.